Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for 30 minutes of honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudi J and I am here with Wendy Vella.
She said me next.
Hello. I know, I did that on purpose. I did it on purpose because you moaned about it last week.
Not moaned, but
you did. You whined.
Okay,
you whined
maybe
and moaned.
Maybe a bit.
Okay, anyway, say
Mine
hello.
here too.
Cheryl Fitz. Cheryl,
No,
say hello.
I'm here.
And Cheryl's here. Yeah, without the lovely Shar.
Morena.
Which is potentially why this is just going to be a bit messy today. I don't know.
It is because we're talking about my favourite subject.
Yes, plotting. But plotting for pantsers is what we called it for today, which potentially means that we're just going to be bashing plotting. I don't know. I'm a plotter, so I'm going to be the sole defender, clearly.
But I mean, the thing is, we weren't going to discuss plotting, right? We decided... No. We had another topic and then we started all talking about plotting beforehand. So we thought, why not use this?
Why not? Because we had some really interesting stories.
We do have some
interesting. Yeah. So let's start with Cheryl.
Start
with Cheryl, because I think that you told a really interesting story. I was fascinated.
Well, I'm sure I've talked about it before, but I'm a hybrid. That's what I am. I don't plot to start my book, and I couldn't even tell you exactly when I do lean into plotting, because the story just unfolds. It could be from the cover that I've pre-purchased. It could be from the title that I know, and it's because I write in series. I think that's why it's not so hard for me to do it that way. And then with my cozy mysteries, so there's got to be a murder. And usually that's where I start, like a person is murdered, and going from there I figure out.
But tell them.
See by your face, you're like, yeah, let's dig in here. Okay, so sometimes I don't know who the
murderer is. She doesn't know who the murderer is in the murder mystery.
But along those lines, I'm already weaving in a few people that it could be. So sometimes, yes, it is a bit of a surprise to me as well. But it's all cleaned up by the end of the book. And like I say, around halfway, then I will start to plot. So I have a little table that I'll put in all the chapters, and then I'll add salient points, trying to cover off all the red herrings and where people are at a certain time. So I'll have like day one morning, day one afternoon, that sort of thing. So I might put that up if you haven't already got that.
Because I saw you filling that out one time, and I was fascinated by it, because it's not just, so it has down one side, it's got chapter 1, chapter 2, and then you've got a one line kind of thing, but it was also like the time frame, so you knew like it's day 1 and day 2 or day 5 or whatever, and that I found fascinating as well. Like it's quite helpful. Sometimes I lose track of what day I'm at when I'm writing.
Well, a day can actually fall into like 5 or 6 chapters, right? You know, if it's a really, really juicy plot point. So I have to know, because my critique editor will certainly pick that up. So best I get that sorted before it goes through.
How many words do you put in a chapter, Share, if I may ask?
It varies. Like sometimes I've literally had a 3-page chapter. So what is that? That's
about 300 words a page.
Yeah, something like that. But around, I would say around 2,500. Is a chapter for me, because what I'm trying to do with my chapters is end on them wanting to read on to the next chapter. So something's happening. So they're not going to bed. They're not, putting down a book and closing their eyes and going to sleep, because that's when your reader's going to switch off.
Do you have one voice through the whole book?
Yes. So it's written in third person, but one point of view. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So so I don't write first person. It's
So how much, let's talk about the plotting angle. How much do you know before you start writing? Like you've got your main character who is the same. And I'm curious about the mystery stuff rather than the romance, because I'm kind of blows my mind that you, for example, don't know who murdered the person. But do you know
from that though, eh?
I know, well, maybe I can't. Maybe I just can't. Maybe I will never move on.
Maybe we can't be friends anymore.
Maybe this is it. No, I should stop yelling. So how do you know the murder? Like, do you know how they're murdered?
Yeah. So how they're murdered, and because mine are culinary cozies, it's getting more difficult so that it's not poison. It can't be poison every time. You know, there's got to be a
he slipped on the knife.
Yeah. But obviously my female sleuth, and you know, the place where she works, which is a bakery, or the next one's going to be a diner, you know, that has to come into play. So you've got lots of people involved, and each story you don't want to have everybody. So you pick a couple, and then, you know, you could kill off one of those, but it's not, you know, like in mysteries, it's not always a good idea to kill off your darlings. It's it's and you know, oftentimes when you, oh God, who am I? It's just somebody that's come into town, or a stranger that nobody knows, and then you have to figure out why they're there.
Does the main character ever get suspicious that a lot of people are dying around her in a small town?
Well, I make mention of it from time to time. And especially when a detective will come in, a new detective into the story, and they're like, seriously, you are the common denominator, you know, there's got to be something wrong with you. So I do play all those cards through it, but not every book. Yeah. Because obviously you buy my series, you know that there's a murder and that this female sleuth is going to be involved.
Do you think it's easier when you're writing series from the plotting angle? So every book you're going to, you know the setting, you know the characters, you know, so plotting's not as important to you?
I think definitely with the cozy mysteries, I find it a lot easier. Like the story flows, and I think it's because I get wound up in it, and that must be a good thing. If I get excited about what I'm writing about, then, you know,
someone else is going to.
And
interesting, very interesting.
What about when you wrote the first one in that new series? Did you just pants that? How did you get into the character?
Well, I don't know if you remember, but we actually sat around and
yes, I do remember.
Brainstormed and this new series I was going to write in Cozies. I suddenly had this epiphany that I would try my hand at it. And so we sat around with a group of friends and we worked out, I don't know, because they all start the letter of the alphabet. So we started at A and we went right down to about, I don't know, F or G. And interestingly, I'm up to G now. And so we found the titles, and then the titles became the story. So apple pie and arsenic. So somebody was going to die from arsenic poisoning.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
But plotting with other people is actually quite good because they see things you wouldn't. It's quite interesting. I've quite often been stuck and talked to you guys, and you guys have found me, you know, out of a hole that I was in. So yeah, that works well.
Well, maybe we should actually talk about
what Wendy does. Well, because what I wanted to mention is there's loads of different styles of plotting as well. Like it doesn't have to be you have to do it this one way, and it's also about what works for you. I mean, Wendy and I almost came to blows before we hit record over.
We were in different
over the
areas of the city.
No, I'm kidding. So these things, like, so when I plot, I use a mix between the story grid, which is Sean Coyne's kind of system, and it's very structured and you have very certain set things, and I find it a little bit too structured, almost crazy as that may sound. And then Michael Haig, who we've met and we've interviewed, and we did sessions with him at a conference. He's awesome, and I really like what he has to say. And then recently I added in Lisa Cron, because I love her and the watch. Of course I do, right? No, she is awesome. This is why I love her. It's not because I'm just adding more complications to my life. No.
You said it.
But I added her a little bit. But what I'm doing is creating my own little system. So I'm pulling the pieces that make most sense to me out of each of those styles, and pulling them and making them work for me. And I guess that's part of our point here today, is that that's what we all have to do, right? Like, so Cher's got this kind of half and half plotting versus pantsing system, and Wendy's got her messed up, crazy, God knows what you'd call it system.
That has made her famous.
Has made her famous, you know, so we should all be copying her.
But that's one of the things that I brought up when we were chatting prior, that we've been to so many conferences and these people that you're naming, and there's heaps more. And I guess maybe what you take in, you don't actually realize. And somehow between all those things that you hear about and what you know, you find something that works for you. So I think that's what's happened to me. I couldn't put a name on it. I couldn't define what I
No.
do with any one person that I've read or listened to. But somehow I have the system that's
There's no name for what I do at all.
No, it's the
Yeah.
Wendy way.
Yeah.
So let's focus on Wendy for a few
No,
minutes.
please don't.
And
Yeah.
find out a little.
Clearly uncomfortable.
So
Blowing
Wendy
into a
is
bag as we speak.
an all-out pantser, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
and she doesn't like it. She was just saying how she's fighting. You're fighting with your current novel. Is that what we're
Yeah,
doing?
and so this it was a new series. I'm starting a new series, and I haven't started a new series for a while. So this was, I had to get a lot of things right in that first book, especially to go on to the next books. I'm very character driven. I spend a lot of time on characters. So insofar as the names had to be right, and I speak to a lot of, I got some people I sort of bad ideas around with over that. And then I thought with this one, why not actually write some things on a Word document,
Crazy.
Crazy mental girl that I am. So I did that. I plotted this, where the story could go, what the suspense element in it be, what they do, these brothers, and then I wrote sort of one line sort of breakdown on each chapter for the first sort of 10, 20 chapters. Haven't looked at it since. In fact,
have you used it at all, or have you got a
deviated completely away from where I was, even with so far as the suspense element, which I had dialed in, and I never do that. Gone. It's completely different. So
I feel like I was working with you. Like,
yes,
we did that. I'm feeling gutted that
Yeah.
is not part of your book anymore.
Wow.
I didn't know
Don't ask me again.
It's an interesting thing because
Knife to the heart.
It's quite a struggle sometimes. I sit there and I stare at the document and I'm like, what? And then all of a sudden I will hit a point about 30,000 words and I'll go, okay, I've got it now. And then I go back to the beginning and completely rework it. And then by the time I get to about the end of that, I'm at about 40,000 words, and then it's the run home. But it is like having a backpack full of bricks and wading through a mud-filled stream, and really large, oversized boots for quite a while. I mean, my husband's like, he can hear me just going off, just tisking and, I cannot believe this is happening, and and stuff like that. So it's a wonder.
You're not really selling the Wendy Vallis system, I have to say. It sounds kind of painful, and
every page is a surprise.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when I plot, though, I don't always follow the exact plot that I've set out. It just gives me a direction, and sometimes it helps me to kind of rein me in. It's like I'd be all over the show.
I'm incredibly jealous of people who tell me that, I don't know if they're lying, but they tell me that they actually plot a book and then they just they're away, and I'm just like that. I am so jealous of that.
I feel like as you're doing, though, that 30,000, you are plotting. Like that's your version of plotting.
The first draft is a lot of hard angst. But by the time I've got to the end of that draft and I start again, I'm away, because that's when I fill in all the humor and extrapolate on the stuff that I've already done, and so that's great. But it is a process, like it really is quite a hard process. And
it is your process, and I've
tried so many different ways. I've tried this Randy Ingman's Snowflake. Is it Randy? That's the Snowflake. Yeah. Loved that, was great, but never used it again. There's just, I've tried everything.
Let's talk about that, the Snowflake method, because that's one that you said that you actually have tried and it worked. So
I've tried it once or twice, and the second time it didn't work. So
really?
Yeah. I don't. The thing about it is, I just have to go, well, this is it. This is it. I think the thing is, I tend to write fast and I tend to smash out quite a few words at a time. So I think what might be beneficial for me to going forward is go, well, actually, you're only going to write 3,000 words today. So slow down.
Is that all? Oh,
2,000 words today. I'm going to write 2,000 words today.
Why?
I don't know. I'm always questioning myself. I think that's what writers do, though.
Yeah.
I think that's what we do.
But why would you change? I don't understand the reasoning.
I don't know. I don't understand. I'm always trying to change things. That's just me.
Not giving us anything here. You're like,
well, look, I think if you can plot, I say take my hat off to you. I really, really do. And what I do in the first pass is I have I go to notes and I'll write in those notes, this needs to be dealt with, this needs to be dealt with, this needs to be dealt with, so that's an issue there. And then I go back to the when I do the second draft, I'll bring out those notes and go, okay, these things are from the first book in the series or whatever that I need to infiltrate back in,
But
and those.
you use Scrivener, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
So if you're writing a series, you can actually drag in the old notes.
Yeah, you can.
Right.
Yeah.
So are you talking about writing notes on a piece of paper as well?
Yeah, no, I put them in that little notes folder that's on the bar
Okay.
down the bottom with the yellow thing across the top. I do
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah.
On a Mac. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's interesting to me is that sometimes people like plotting, they talk about, I plot and then I'm able to do it faster, I'm able to write faster. And so, which is true for me. Like, I feel like if I have a plot and I have a structure, then I can move faster through it. But I need to leave room for being creative and figuring out how certain things happen. So
Because some things unlock things, right?
Yeah. Like writing, the process of writing unlocks my creativity in a way that when I'm sitting down plotting things doesn't. There's two different minds where your brain is at. But I think what you're talking about is really interesting, because there's a lot of people out there who think that if you're pantsing, it has to be a lot slower. But actually, you're quite a fast writer. And you actually could probably leave the rest of us in the dust if we were talking about how fast you writing books. So it's kind of good to say, maybe it's just about finding your own process and the process that works for you.
And stop the doubt, stop questioning yourself, actually just back yourself.
I think too that the problem for you, Wendy, is that you have a lot of people saying when you throw away 30,000 words or thereabouts, the rest of, not the rest of the world, but a lot of us are like absolutely horrified. So that makes you think you're doing something wrong.
Maybe.
And of course, for people that can only write 1,500 words a day or less, that is just absolutely horrific.
That's like a
but
month's
those
worth
words
of
that they write are probably gold. Like
that's what I'm saying.
It may not be.
It doesn't really matter. It's just that the fact that you found a process that works for you and so incredibly well. Why would you want to change it? Because
that's
somebody says you'll get it done faster. That's all.
We're neurotic, right? Aren't we? We're writers. We are neurotic. And I get to the end of a book and I am always absolutely surprised people like it. Like totally surprised. I can't be objective. I don't know what you guys are like, but there is no way I can be objective of my own stuff.
For the first time in my life,
I'm clueless.
For the first time of my life, I finished my last book and I thought, that's the best cozy I've written.
Wow.
Well, maybe not when I compare it with the romances, but it was just like, I was so happy. I was really happy how it worked out. And then I got one of my usual reviewers saying to me, she knocked it down to, she said 3.5 stars, but she actually gave me 4 because I'd taken them from Oregon and taken them to London for a particular reason, for something that was going to happen that became the mystery. But and Trudi talked me down from that because she said, well, obviously they like the world that you've created so much that they didn't hate the story, but it wasn't the story they wanted. And I was like, well,
I think it wasn't the setting they wanted, right? Like they didn't want to be in London. Right. They wanted to be back in this amazing setting.
It's not the story.
No.
So,
no. Anyway,
I think for me, it's a case of like, I've written a very successful series and then I'm writing another series, so you sort of want, and other reviews have started coming in from the arcs and they're loving it, they're really loving it. And I'm just like, wow, who knew? It's like, it's just, I'm neurotic. Clearly.
Yeah, we all are. It is all.
Well, I think we float in and out of it, don't we?
So let's talk about. I was going to say, just let's talk about how you do it. So for you, writing, say, 30,000 words, is that a week's worth of work? Like, is that you?
Yeah.
Or less, or is it just
probably depends on how I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep to 3,000 a day because I just don't need to be doing any more than that.
Yeah.
But I will do that 3,000 words a day if I set that goal. If I have to keep writing until 10 o'clock at night, I'll do it to get it done.
Yeah. Does it take you that long to do 3,000 words?
Depends on the situation, what I've got on during the day, that sort of thing. And I'm less hard on myself than I used to be. I think. But I do have the luxury of a backlist, so I'm lucky,
So it's interesting because you write the 30,000 and then you go back to the beginning and you kind of can see. So as soon as you get to 30,000, and it's almost like So what's the full length of one of your books?
But oh look, it can be, that's another thing. I really, between 70 and 85, you know, like.
So it's not quite, it's more than a third, but it's not quite halfway. So you're kind of getting a significant chunk into the book. And then you kind of go back and rewrite. And I think that's a big difference to me with pantsing versus plotting, is that pantsers have to go back and kind of edit the book in that way. And whereas maybe plotters have at least the structure there, they might have to go back and edit in things like edit characters and edit scenes and and things like that. So
you would have consistency, you know, because I quite often get picked up by an editor saying, oh, this time frame's not right, or you know, you said this in here and this in here. Those things, it's pretty clean when it goes, to be fair to an editor, but there are some consistency issues. Which
you say that I have loads of consistency issues, because what I'm plotting is not the color of the eyes or the setting or things like that. What I'm plotting is this happens and this happens and this happens. Just the action. And I actually, I think this is a problem for me. I think I need to do more plotting. But base it around. But I think where I fall down is character. I feel like I have focused on a really action plot-based kind of systems, and to the detriment of kind of learning my characters to a deeper level. And I think that
you need to interview them, and I like, I haven't done that for a while, but if I'm really stuck, I will interview my characters, and that is a massive learning curve. And if you're struggling to find what questions to ask them, they've got a million on Google. Just go and characters to interview questions, and I'm always stunned, and I'm writing these guys, you know, and I'm like, wow. Okay, so you're going there, are you? You know, like, and you talk about their family, and then you'll go, so what was your relationship with your dad like? And you're like, and he's like, well, you know, and you can, and oh, okay, that's why you're like you are. And it's quite interesting and intriguing how that unfolds and gives a character layers, you know. It's tough when you're writing a series and there's a whole lot of brothers or a whole lot of sisters, because you've got to make each one different. You know? And that can be quite hard. But yeah, so you plot.
That sounds a lot like plotting to me.
It's not the story plot though, Trudi.
Yeah, but it's a part of it though, because
I don't write it down.
This is what what I have been learning recently in my things is, but once you get the characters, then it almost becomes like, so instead of creating a plot point that says, you know, they must have an argument, and then you create this argument, it's almost like you have the character and you know that he hates his dad because his dad was mean to him when they were a kid, and then he comes across someone being mean to their kid or something, and it's a trigger point, and you, of course they're going to have an argument. Instead of it being something contrived, it becomes something that's so inherent in the character that you as a reader, you kind of go, well, of course that happened, rather than it being like, oh, that came out of left field, because and it's more of a plot point because you as the author want it to happen, versus it being a character based thing that happens. And then once you know those characters, it's almost like the plot points create themselves, because you've created this character with this trigger around his father, so he almost has to face that as he's going through the book, and that's the thing that he has to face as he goes through it. So there's all these different ways to think about plotting, you know.
I think that is true, but I also think sometimes you have to give yourself a little bit of leeway. If you pigeonhole your character, and then during the book when something happens that a person that felt that way or had that kind of background wouldn't do what they were going to do, then you kind of, I think adaptation, you have to be able to adapt your story like that, like not change the character halfway through, but certainly make it so that whatever you write isn't locked in stone. You know?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
You've got to be a bit flexible.
Yes.
I don't know. I've just been reading a couple of books recently, and I just think the author did it so well, where she just had these characters, and you kind of could feel You know, like sometimes when you're reading and you've got these cut out characters, and it could be anyone, and I just, you know, I love how she does it, where she just creates, every time you get a new character, it's this, you know, and I think that's what Wendy does, and you've got these amazingly strong characters too in your series, so it's something that I'm trying to work on as well.
I think you're either character driven or, you know, like I don't write description of scenery very well. You know, setting a place up, or that's just something I have to actually work very hard at it. So I think you've got to work out your strength, and if you can really write to that strength, it then makes the other stuff not such a big deal. You know, for me, dialogue and character, and it's all about, and I write male characters better than female characters, and stuff like that. I think once you get to that understanding of how your writing works, I think your book will flow a lot better, because I think I used to make the real mistake of going in and just pulling out all this extraneous fluffy stuff of scenery and rah, 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 rah. And it didn't do anything, you know? No. So I think once you understand that, and that's the same with plotting, I plot characters because that's how I write. You know, there would be no point in me plotting all about scenery or places or stuff like that.
I don't think it's ever an amazing idea to plot or to write an awful amount of information about the scenery. I think
for me that's not plotting though. I guess it's a part of it, but to me that is research.
That's right. That's the difference.
If I'm writing about Oregon, then I need the trees that might be in the background, or the seasons, how a season looks. That is important to my story.
Yeah.
So I do plot that. But then if I'm writing series, it's kind of like, well, I have it all there. I don't have to keep, you know, I know now what the town looks like.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So that's an interesting point. It's like, is it plotting when you create the world that your characters are inhabiting? I kind of think it is. I think you're right. You research it, but it's for the plot, as in, and I think sometimes so for example, in a cozy mystery anyway, the environment is actually quite an important part of it, like especially like you've got your culinary mysteries, so then it's like, well, she has to be, you know, she's got the bakery and she's this, you know, like you've got all these aspects to it that are very important, so you kind of need to know them and have them set up, even if you don't know who murdered the person.
I have to have a recipe in place, because I promise them a recipe in every book, so I have to have that. So that is also research, and I guess therefore plotting.
See,
so plotting is an individual thing, isn't it? You know, like it. While I don't plot the entire story, there are elements of clearly that Trudi's rifled out of me that I do plot.
Yes.
You know?
I knew it.
Whereas I know people that will write 5,000 words of plotting, and I'm just
more. That's a very small amount of plotting. I mean, I know people, so they will write like what they call this kind of a bare skeleton draft, and you write like, you know, like if your chapter is going to be 2,000 words, you write like a 500 or a, you know, 750 word kind of outline almost in there, and you do that for every chapter in the book, and then you go back to the beginning, and then you flesh it out a bit more, and it's almost like you massage the story into place. And so that first draft of like, you know, you'd say a third of which is at a third of what the final will be, is kind of like your first draft.
To me, that really appeals to me, but I have tried it, and I just go, I'm like, oh God, no, because now chapter 2 has to be this. It can't be that.
And I think it also depends on how you write. Like some people will write one chapter here and one chapter here and one chapter here and one chapter here, and then just put them all together, whereas I write really linear, and that I've tried to do that. I've come up with these ideas of what's going to happen further down the book, but I break out in a rash, you know, like I have to get from A and to B and to C.
Do you know? So when you get that idea, like you say, oh my God, there's this amazing potential for this explosion at the wedding scene, for example, do you, like you're talking about how if you plot it too much, then you go off in a completely different direction. So you've not plotted it per se, but you've headed in that direction. Do you still get to do that scene that you want to do as long as you do it linearly?
I don't write it down. Yeah, I don't write it down, but I will.
You're tricking your subconscious. So by not writing it down, you tell yourself that you're not plotting, even though you have created the scene in your head. I'm just making you aware of this fact.
Okay. Oh, if you say so.
I know that when I've been stuck, when I've had writer's block, for want of a better word, and I can't seem to go any further with where I am, I have written the ending.
Oh, that's interesting.
It can, like it's not set in stone. I can, manipulate it and change it slightly, but that's helped me.
This is an interesting topic to me. So I sometimes, if I'm struggling to write something, I'll be like, okay, my first thought is this really boring? Like, and if it's boring to me, it's going to be boring to readers, right? So I'm like, But the other thing is that sometimes when I push past it and I keep going, and then I get into this total flow state. They talk about flow state. And then suddenly 2 hours have gone by and I don't really know, and I've written all these words and it's just amazing. Like, so how does that work in terms of?
Makes me happy.
Me too.
So happy.
Yeah. And I will remove myself from wherever I am if it's not happening, and then go somewhere else, and then it does happen.
Yeah. So that's about
environment's massive for me.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting? So that's a real pantsing thing. To some tips for pantsers out there: change your environment, change your thing. How can you create that flow? Like, do you ever, are there things that you do to?
I think you can try, but I'm not sure that it always pans out. But you can definitely. It's a different state to being in the zone and it flowing well, and just that complete lack of awareness of anything around you. That's what I think you mean, that flow. They're kind of slightly different.
Yeah.
Maybe
you're excited to write.
Oh yeah.
But you're almost like you're in the story, right? And I just wonder whether maybe if you're plotting, you are less likely to get into that state of flow, maybe. I don't know. Versus pantsing.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people do plot, so I guess they must get into that state of flow.
To me, it's that when you're typing and you literally cannot type fast enough because the words are just coming, you know, and sometimes you go back over it and you've made so many mistakes, words and so many spelling mistakes. And it actually matter.
When you proof a piece of your work and there's mistakes and you've mischanged words and transposed things and that, and you go, wow, I was in the zone when I wrote that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really interesting, I think.
Yeah. I just was thinking in my head, is that something that maybe a pantser is more like to get into, and therefore if you're in that zone and you're just writing and things are coming to you, then maybe you're writing faster, and that's how you kind of get, I don't know, I don't know,
like I think the problem probably for pantsers is you write yourself into a corner. That doesn't happen to me now because I can see it coming, so I know what's happening, and I'll just Can
you give me an example of a corner that you've written yourself into and you had to go back and like rewind? Did you kill someone off, or?
No, probably more of an action, maybe. I don't know. I
something
can't
happens
say
too soon in the story.
Yeah, so something happened too soon. Perfect.
Yeah, and you've got something else to write about exactly how they got to that stage.
I can't in the book I'm writing at the moment, and I saw them getting to the stage where they were going to accept what the other had done and sort of move on from it and stuff, and I'm like, no, we're not ready for that. We're not nowhere near ready for that. There must be more conflict before we get to that. So I would then go back and write another couple of chapters before that, I'd go back and go, okay, well, in actual fact, I'm here, I need to bring in a couple of scenes, well, let's go to the fair, or let's go to the water gardens, and let's get the dog to do something stupid, and then move on.
So that's experience, and I don't think you can rush. If you're a new writer, I think you just have to get out there and try and write and figure out structure. I think that's maybe just years of writing and years of experience to know and recognize that.
Talking to other people,
and knowing your process.
Yeah.
You got to know your process.
You won't know that till you try several things.
I mean, I don't know my process, but I do. Do you know what I mean? Like I feel sometimes I don't know my process.
We do. We know.
We understand your process, even if you don't understand your process, because it's the same every time.
It's insane, right? It's insane when I finish a book, and I'm like, even my daughter said to me the other day, "Oh, Mom, come on! We know we've been there, we've done this. Just the book's going to be good, And
you are so convinced. You are so convinced. It's no. This time it's shit. Like all those other times, I get that maybe I was wrong, but no, this time.
This time
That's what my family have said, that they think that they might have a little room somewhere and just chuck me in, feed me chocolate, wine, movies, couch, and I just stay in there until the first reviews come out. And then, oh my gosh.
But I think for anybody starting out now, my honest advice would be give plotting a go and try
Please
it.
give it a go.
Try it more than once, because seriously, if it can save you time in the beginning stages of your career, it's going to be worth it. If you can get like 2 or 3 books out in the time that it would perhaps take you to get one out, that would be really, really cool. But it may not, so that's okay. You just have to learn to accept that, and then
it doesn't make you any better or worse writer.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think this is the trap that some people fall into. There's so many people telling you what you should do. You don't have. You can listen to all this advice, but just take what you want and work what works for you, and you will find that path. Don't
do something that will change your voice.
No, exactly. Yeah, good call, Shar.
Yeah, there's definitely, and I think people think because it works for them that it's going to work for everyone else. Sometimes they don't really understand that people's brains work differently and I think that's the joy of what we do here at the Spa Girls, is that we are talking so often about our different processes and the way that things work, and we kind of understand that each of us thinks differently. Like, we've had so many examples where we've talked about stuff and we all think so differently on the same kind of processes that we're putting through. But it's fine, because it's whatever works for each of us. And
it's taken us a while though, Trudels, to come to that realization.
Sure.
Like if you think of when we very first started together, I don't know how many.
And I insisted that everyone did everything my way. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, has that
changed? Snap.
Maybe not. Maybe that hasn't changed.
No, but what I'm saying is how we as writers have become more accepting of. Now we accept our processes, even though they're hard to accept. But like, you're a plotter, you're a hardcore plotter insofar as you will, but you're a hybrid plotter like Cheryl, insofar as you'll pluck things from different things and meld them all together, and you're very open and willing to accept a new idea, to your plotting and changing your process, even this far down your writing career. Which I think is quite a marvel.
I just like the changes. But when I very first started out in my career, I was convinced that I was a pantser, that the words were going to flow through me from the heavens and was all going to come out. I mean, I've talked about this before. And then I wrote this. It took me 10 years to write a book, like that's where that led me. So my desire to have a plot and to have somewhere to go and have a structure is around kind of doing something in a manageable time frame, and also I get a bit overwhelmed. Like, I would literally just sit there staring at the page if I didn't know where I was going. Like, if I can brainstorm and think up ideas and have something there, have a structure, I don't have to always follow it to the exact, and I don't often. Like, I'll go off on a different tangent, but at least I have something there to work with, that I'm so that I'm not, don't sit. The worst thing in the world, the thing I hate most about writing, is sitting there in front of my keyboard not knowing what to write. Like, it's that's my thing. So at least for me, having a plot and somewhere to go and an understanding of my characters just takes that away. I don't end up sitting there with nothing to write and not knowing where to go. So it's a control issue. Clearly, I need control.
I think also it might be until you find your place, or you find the right genre for you, or I don't know, a mixture of all of them, because I know that I don't really suffer from that when I'm writing my cozies. I don't actually have that issue. I mean, I guess to a small extent from time to time I might, but I know that when I'm writing my romances, I get that quite often, because there's things I don't want to write. I'm not really a big sex scene writer. I can write them, but it's not my favorite thing to do. But I do like writing about family and small towns, and so those things, they flow quite easily. But other things,
find your strengths, eh?
Exactly.
And we'll definitely link to a few of these plotting peoples in the show notes.
I think we've all tried at least. Another one to mention is Romancing the Beat. Can't remember who it's by, but that's a goodie. And the Libby Hawker book, Take Off Your Pants.
I've read that.
Yeah, you didn't do anything with it though, did you?
No.
So but those are all good books, and people do enjoy them and use them. So I think it's just find what works, right? Is the moral of our story.
Yep.
Try
Absolutely.
a few things. Don't get stuck on
Don't
there
beat
being
yourself
one
up.
way, and don't
No.
beat yourself up. That is
No.
never beat yourself up.
Just remember, you're a writer. You're pretty cool to start with. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
You're a rock
you've
star.
got this. You're a
You
rock
got
star.
this.
And
Fine.
we're really interested to hear how you
Absolutely.
do. You know,
Love
what
to hear
is-
what you do.
You're a
Mm.
ploncer.
A
Maybe
what?
I am a ploncer.
It's a new word, a ploncer.
Yeah, a ploncer. or a
I'm not sure it's
ploncer.
going to catch
Yeah,
on, to be
no.
fair.
I could be a ploncer. Brilliant.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. Where can we be found?
We can be found at spargirlspodcast.com on multiple platforms. And don't forget to come and look us up on YouTube too. And you can see how hilarious our facials are. And definitely find us on Facebook at Spa Girls Podcast. And come and tell us what you do. We'd love to hear.
Awesome. Thank you all for listening. See you.
Bye.
Bye.